Alright, so here's what we're going to do. Alright, we're going to first place our vanishing points, okay? Now, our vanishing points are going to be pretty basic, okay? Sometimes your vanishing points generally, well, not sometimes, generally most of the time your vanishing points appear somewhere off the paper, okay? Maybe one might be here and then one be off somewhere. But for what we're doing, we're just going to put them on the paper at the very edges, okay, for what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find the middle of this just by guessing, okay. What I can do to, I could measure, but that's not absolutely necessary. This is, 8.5 inches wide, therefore it'd be 4 1/4 inches, right? But you can also just put a mark that you think is kind of in the middle, and then you could check yourself by taking your fingers and spreading them out and then seeing how that works. So right now it looks like I need to come to right here, okay? So let me see how accurate that is now. Complete accuracy on terms of being in the middle of this is not that important. I'm going to say right there, okay? So I'm putting a vanishing point right at the edge, trying to put it somewhere in the middle between this side. So I'm saying right there. So now that I have that, I can actually take my fingers and spread them apart to the distance of that, then come over here and transfer that here so that I got the same over on this side. Now these vanishing points will go away. We would rather those not be there when we're done, when we're finished artwork. So again, that's why we want to use pencil and we can erase things. So let me check my distance here. That looks pretty good. That'll work. Okay. Alright, so notice we're not starting with a horizon line. That would create sort of a ground sky situation, and we're not doing that. Okay, we're trying to create sort of these floating objects just in sort of space, okay? Alright. So the first thing we're going to do, okay, is we're going to create the, first of all, the corner of this right here. Okay, we're going to create the corner of this. We're going to try to create this kind of main big platform type shape, okay? For which then we're going to compound it by putting these things on top of it and adding to it and then cutting away into it, okay? But the first thing we need to start out with really is this corner right here, okay? And I'm going to show you. So it looks like we need to come, now we say this is sort of the middle of the paper, right? From the left to the right. We're going to go a little left of that, okay, to somewhere about right here. Now, right here is where the horizon is, right? Notice my finger is below that, okay? So I'm going to put somewhere about right here is where I'm going to put my vertical line, okay? So just watch and you can see, and then I'll try to tell you a little bit more about its location and size. Okay, so that mark ended up being about 1.5 inches long. Doesn't have to be completely accurate, but you can see the distance here. I did leave a little bit of space at the bottom. I'll get this a little closer to the camera for you. I left the space at the bottom. It is below the horizon and is left of center. Okay? As long as you kind of get some ballpark of that, you'll be fine. And what that might do is everybody, like how do you kind of put your marks where you place them at? Your shapes might end up being a little different than mine. Just because I'm not giving you exactness of location and size, okay? So yours might look a little different than mine in the end, just because of that. But as long as you're generally within those locations, you should be fine. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do now is now that we have this vertical, okay, now you make sure that that is vertical. And the way you know that, if I put my ruler back on that line, see how it's parallel to the edge of my paper? The distance there is the same. That's how I know this is vertical, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up to my left vanishing point and draw a line from the vanishing point to the bottom of the line, and then from the vanishing point to the top of that line, okay? Now, if you find your ruler moves on you while you're doing this, try to hold the ruler in the middle. Press down the middle. Don't press on the end. If you do that, you kind of create a situation where you could, if you push on that ruler with your pencil, it's liable to move it. I also find students when they use a ruler, which can be a bad situation, is they will push on the ruler. They'll hold their pencil at an angle to the ruler, and as they're drawing, they're kind of drawing it like this. Hold your pencil straight up to the ruler as you're drawing, and therefore it won't be inclined to maybe go up under the ruler or push against the ruler. So kind of hold your pencil straight up when you draw your lines, okay? You're going to need a piece of paper up here, and you're going to need a ruler from up here as well. So that big long ruler, it's on the part in the middle. Look down, look under, right there. And there's a big ruler right there you'll need as well. And Priya, could you help her get caught up where we're at as far as those vanishing points?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Priya, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right, so now that we have that, okay, pretty simple. We just got to repeat that process to this side. Okay, so we're going to line up to this vanishing point because it's on the right-hand side of this line. Also, when you draw these lines, try not to bear down too hard with your pencil because, as I said, we're going to be erasing a lot of these anyway. Now, let me check the screen, though. Hopefully my lines are dark enough. I know people that sit at an angle to my screen, it gets a little washed out. Can you see it? You want to move up to right here? I'll try to draw my lines darker, just for the purpose of y'all being able to see these better. So I'm going to go back and darken mine. This camera tends to overexpose things and kind of wash them out. See if I can figure out some controls with this camera to get better exposure. So I'm drawing my lines really dark for the purpose of being able to see them. But I might be able to, there might be some of that left over when I go to erase it though. That's the only problem. All right, so once we have that, this looks like as if these things go on and converge, okay? That's the idea, is, things that are parallel to one another. I'll just use this box because it's close to me. These have parallel sides, right? The definition of parallel is they won't converge. But in linear perspective, they do. In perspective, they do. In our 3D world, they do, okay? We know this from roads and railroads and stuff like that, railroad tracks, right? They go off in the distance. They look like they kind of taper off to a point. And so that's what's happening here. Essentially, we've created a situation here where we've created these two sides, and they seem to go on and on and on until they converge, these parallel sides. Now, we need to create the ends to this object. We don't want it going on and on forever, so we want to stop it somewhere. And the way we do that, this is where students get lost a lot of times. Okay, this is where they stop doing the verticals. They'll do some kind of an angle like that, or they'll do an angle something like that. Okay, you don't want to do that. Keep it vertical. Okay, so let's stop this thing somewhere about in this area. So make sure your ruler is vertical. Okay, and you just put a vertical line there, just like that. I'm not real close to the edge of the paper, but fairly close. On this side, I'm going to go, here's the middle of the paper, here's the edge of the paper. I'm going to go somewhere a little to the right of 3/4 of the way. So about right here, I'm going to create another vertical here. Again, make sure it's not, your ruler's not at an angle. Make sure your ruler is vertical. Vertical, stay vertical. Okay. Now, to complete this object, okay, this is where students, again, they get like a little haywire here on this in terms of understanding this. This point over here has to line up now to this point here. The top of this line is going to line up to this one over here. Okay, so I'm going to line my ruler up to the top of that line right there to this vanishing point. Remember, everything lines up to a vanishing point. Okay, now this might be looking a little weird right now, but just trust me. I went from the top of this line right here to where it met this line, that intersection, and just drew a line over to this vanishing point. Now I got to do the same thing to the other side. Now I'm going to cross over that line, but I'm going to go from the top of this intersection and line up to the vanishing point on the left. Now, we got some stuff here we got to erase to make this appear, okay, to make it our shape that we want, okay? So this is where the eraser is going to come in. I'm going to erase everything on the outside of this object, everything going to the vanishing point. This is why I meant to not draw so dark, because a lot of these lines get erased. After a while, you will not have to draw these lines all the way to the vanishing point, okay? At some point, hopefully you will know to not necessarily draw all the way. That you know you don't need to. The reason I'm doing it right now is really to reinforce the concept that these go to a vanishing point. But over time, you can start lining up your ruler to your vanishing point, but then not draw a line all the way to the vanishing point, just long enough to complete your shape, okay? But for now, we'll just draw all the way to the vanishing point. Just so we can reinforce that concept. Now, I ended up erasing a little bit of those lines back there, so I tried to draw those back in. So there's our 3D object. Okay, there's our parallel box, or slab, or whatever platform you want to call it, that we're going to now create other things on top of. Now, being that I drew this so far over here and so far over here, this gives us a lot of real estate right here on top of this, for which now we can start to do stuff with. I kind of wish it was a little bigger, but we'll just kind of go with that. If you drew yours where it was kind of even smaller, you're going to have even a smaller space of which to put things on top of. So if you find that like when you're making your objects, then you're planning on doing things to it or adding to it, um, you know, you might have to adjust it once you've drawn it. You might be like, that's just a little too small. I need to push this over a little more because I have plans to do something on top of this, just like this, right? And right now I'm feeling like this is going to be kind of a stretch to fit all that on there, okay? But we'll try. We'll just do what we can. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut into the corner of this as a real basic, simple way to show you how we can do that. To kind of take an object and then kind of cut something else into it. So think about if you're going to do a couch, okay? A couch, is basically like a big block. But if you're going to cut the seat out of it, how would you do that? Like a linear perspective, right? And that's kind of like here, like like chairs or furniture. You can start this way in linear perspective and build these objects, cars, furniture, houses, anything like that. You can start out this way. So how are we going to just sort of take a chunk out of this, okay, right here on the corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up first. Let's start from the right vanishing point. And I'm going to come down this vertical line. Let's just go halfway. I'm going to come down halfway on that vertical line and come back with a line starting from that vertical. And I'm only going to come back a little short distance, about the same length as the height of that line. It's about how far back I went. So I started from here. Now this is an instance. I didn't draw all the way to the vanishing point, okay? I was just talking about that, all right? I might be throwing you off, though. Where's that line going to? It's going to the vanishing point, okay? But I know I want to stop it right here, okay? That's why I didn't draw it all the way. I was just saying I was, but in this instance, I'm not. This is not necessary. Okay? So that's how I got that angle. It lines up to that vanishing point. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to line up to the left vanishing point. I'm going to draw a line that goes back about the same distance. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some verticals coming off the ends of these lines. Okay, I'm going to create some verticals. Again, vertical is vertical. Vertical is not slanted. So I go to the end of that line up a ruler, and draw a vertical. Come over this end of this line, create a vertical. Now, I'm going to do just as I did for the back side of this big platform shape. I'm going to line up from top of this intersection right here over to the right hand side, the top of this intersection right here over to the left hand side. Now, I'm not going to draw my lines all the way because I know I don't need to. I know kind of where they're going to intersect, or at least I can kind of guess where they're going to kind of intersect and throw a line out there that then might get erased, part of it. They'll probably get crossed somewhere and they'll have to go back and erase the excess. So I'm just going to line up to the top of the right hand vertical and just stop. Actually accidentally went over just a little bit, but just sort of stop where it hits and intersects that line. Now, I have excess here I need to get rid of. Again, I didn't know how far to draw it. I just go through a line out there. Now that they intersect right there, now I know to erase it. This lines up to the vantage point on the left. This goes to the vantage point on the right. Everybody getting that? All right. Now at this point, remember I'm trying to take this away, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and start erasing this. Try and take a chunk out of it. Okay. This is what we're trying to create, is this right here. Okay. In the end, that's what we're trying to do. Okay. All right. So from here, we got to find out where the sides are and the top of this is now. Okay. And we can do that by following from this corner over to this vanishing point, and from this corner over to this vanishing point. And once they crisscross, we should be able to put a vertical right here. Okay? And that's the thing about it is, that's why I said this is like algebra or math. It's logic. Okay? Once you start to understand the logic in this, you can reason it out. Okay? You can build. Okay? So basically from here, I said that corner, go to this vanishing point. Now it's not going to go all the way. I only need to go far enough that when I do this side as well, when it intersects, they'll touch. Okay? So I just threw a line out there. I didn't know how far necessarily to go. I just know it's going to cross over when I go to this side now. That's how far I knew to go with this. Alright? So now I'm going to take from this corner to the vanishing point. I'm going to draw until I intersect and touch the line I just drew. Just like that. And then I'm going to erase that little extension part. Now, hopefully if I did this accurately, these two corners right here should line up straight over one another. And then when I draw a vertical, they should intersect. So I'm just going to complete that corner by lining up to those points vertically, and then just complete that. And there we have our insect, basically. Okay, it's an insect. All right. Okay. All right. So, let's build something on top of this platform. Let's make it compound. Okay. Now this is going to be kind of crucial. It's a very small space. I'd like to adjust my cameras maybe to zoom in, but I don't want to. You need to be able to see the outer boundaries of this as well. So I'm just going to have to kind of leave it the way it is. But just know I'm going to try to leave a little gap right here. Okay, this is really important. So if you notice, like right here, let's say somebody walked out of this doorway, right? they could actually walk down this little area here. It's a little platform. So when we're going to draw this line first, and we want to put it, we don't want to go all the way to the end here. Okay, we want to make it look like as if you could walk down this and then turn left and go behind this. And that's what this is doing right here. If we went all the way to the end, we'd lose that effect. Okay, right now it looks like this goes in behind that. All right, and then we're going to draw this line here, and also we're going to stop, and it makes it look like this. You could walk all the way around this on this sort of platform area. Okay, and these two lines right here, what we do right here, are going to determine that. Okay, all right, okay, so let's do that. All right, so I'm going to start with my right vanishing point. I'm just going to put my ruler there. And I'm going to come down on top of this. I'm going to start to look at this space right here that I'm creating. Okay? I'm going to feel like maybe that's going to work right there. I'm going to start about right here. And I'm going to stop before I get to that line on the back. Okay? So you can see right there, this goes to that vanishing point. It didn't go all the way to this line. I left a space right here. I stopped somewhere around here, that way I got space right here. Okay? Alright, so now I'm going to create the front side of this. I'm going to go from the end of this line to my left vanishing point. And I'm only going to go kind of a short distance. Well, actually, extend that out a little bit. So we're going to create a little entry doorway right here. Or actually, we're going to make an arch out of that, I'm sorry. So I only went about that far. So I still got space over here. And I think this is where a lot of students, this really gets difficult because these spaces get tight, okay? They get pretty tight sometimes. But you got to maintain this concept that these things go to the vanishing points. Okay, you got to maintain that these go to the vanishing point. As long as you do that, you'll be okay. All right. So now I'm going to create my vertical on this corner. You know, where these two lines came together. Now I'm going to create a vertical there. And I'm going to go up about so far. All right, so I've officially crossed over my horizon line. You know, this is where my horizon line would be. It lines up with these two vanishing points, okay? Actually, this back corner just about lines up the vanishing point. But what that means is I can't see the top of this, like down on top or from below. This is on the horizon line. So what that means, now, you know, we've been drawing everything kind of going up to these vanishing points, going up. Now it means we're going to start to draw down to the vanishing point. So from the top of this, I'm going to line up to this vanishing point. And notice how now that's angling, and now in a new angle. Now how far do I know to draw this line? Well, this line is going to stop once it gets over the end of this line. You know, this is going to go up, and they're going to intersect. So I don't necessarily need to go all the way to the vanishing point. I just need to go far enough that it goes past or right above the end of this line. Okay? So from here, I can complete that shape, that side. And I can take my ruler, make sure it's vertical, and just come over to the end. I'm going to do it from, I about got really close. I did stop really close to that line right over the other one. But I am going to have just a little bit to erase. And now those are connected. Now again, that's with the vertical. If you drew an angle to complete those lines, that's not going to work. Okay? Make sure your ruler is vertical to connect those lines. Now right now this might look like a glass wall, all right, because we can see the edge of this platform behind it. I can go back now and erase part of that just so we can make that look solid. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I can leave it till we're all done. At least now it looks like as if this is solid and it's on that platform. What also makes it look like it's on the platform is the fact of this right here, okay, that I did stop right there. It does make it look like it's sitting on this platform, okay? All right, so now I'm going to try to attempt to complete this side. The way I'm going to do that, same process, go from the top of this intersection right here, top of my vertical line on the corner, line up to my left vanishing point. I'm only going to make a line long enough that I think that's going to intersect vertically with the line below it. Now I'm going to create a vertical to connect the two. It looks like I didn't draw it long enough. I'm just a fraction off. So I'm going to draw my vertical and then just complete that little gap right there. And then I can erase the back side of the platform on this side. Now complete my compounded shape. Now I will say one more thing. When we first started this out, it did determine also the size of this area. If I had took this vertical and brought it down a little further, I would have had a bigger space here as well from which to kind of see, all right? As soon as these things start coming more and more up to the horizon line, they get slimmer and seeing more of the edge. Whereas if I had brought this down further, we would start to see more of the top side, just like my hand. So my hand's right on your eye level. As I start to come down, this is what you start to appear to see, okay? As I start to go above your eye level, then this is kind of what you start to appear and see, okay? So the fact that I got this kind of close to our eye level, it kind of slimmed down this area. So you might want to keep that in consideration when you go to do your final shape, okay? All right. So, all right, we're going to do something kind of odd to this, okay? We're going to make a domed roof, okay? All right. We could do it by trimming this down into a domed roof, or we could extend it above. I think we're going to extend it above, okay? You could do it either way, okay? But it's going to cause us to have to do something, okay? And we're going to have to find the middle of this, okay? This is where, again, it turns into more like geometry, okay? How do you think you could find the middle between this area here? How could you find the middle between this side and this side? Now, no, this is linear perspective. Things get smaller as they go away from us. So that means the middle on this side should be smaller than what's the middle on this side and then what's halfway. So how do we find the distance to find the middle between right here, between these two sides? How do you think we do that? Any ideas? How about if we draw a line from this corner to this corner, and we draw a line from this corner to this corner? Do you think that's going to reveal it? It will. So, no need for math, no need for breaking out calculators and slide rules and all that. We're just going to line up from this corner to this corner. Now, this is something definitely we're going to erase, okay? This is not going to stay. But I'm just trying to find the center of this area. So I'm going from that corner to that corner, and then I'm going from this corner to this corner. Maddie, I am recording this, so I'm going to post it later. I'll have you get caught up, okay? All right, so I'm going to go from this corner to this corner. Ta-da! We found the center. So notice how this side is a little shorter and this side is a little bigger. But we've now found the center of this area. Okay? So what I'm going to do is now I need to create a vertical through that to extend up, because we're going to create an arch on this. Okay? We're going to create an arch. Okay? Actually, we should do it right here, but I didn't plan on that. Let's go ahead and do it anyway. All right, we'll do it here. All right, so we need to find, again, all this was to find the midpoint right here. That's what this was all about. So now we're going to take our ruler and create a vertical, and we're just going to make a little dash right there. That's all that was about, was to find that. Okay, that's why we did all that, was just to find that right there. Okay? And now we can use it for here as well. Okay? So let me demonstrate. So from that kind of crosshair kind of looking area, that intersection, I'm going to now create two little dashes on this vertical on the left and this vertical on the right. Okay? Actually, I'm going to demonstrate something. Let's do this. I'm going to line this back up vertical right through the intersection and put a dash on this area below as well. I'm going to show you how to make a circle or a cylinder in linear perspective the proper way. So now I know where all the halfway points are on this entire side of this object. Okay? So what I want to do now is I want to create an arch right here. Okay? And what was important about doing that was to be able to find where this needs to intersect here, where this arch will go, and where it will need to then start to come down and intersect here. So now we're going to try to create a curve that starts, stops, stops here, and make one that looks, we're going to freehand it, okay? And we want to make it look like an arch when we're done, okay? So Just going to do our best. Now, let me explain something real quick. I was sort of drawing along this contour and then came up and just sort of diverged from it. And then I sort of joined in with this, so it looks like as if it just continues along that path. If it looks like it just kind of angles and stops and then hits abruptly, it won't look believable. So it just needs to kind of pretend you're drawing along this contour again and just start to kind of break off from it. Almost like you're exiting a highway at like a high rate of speed, okay? Can't exit a highway and just turn an abrupt 45 degrees, right? You have to kind of ease off the highway. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm easing off of this line right here, then easing onto this line, right? Like this, now I'm exited off of 40 and now I'm getting on 52, right? And that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm trying to maintain speed because traffic this way is doing 65 miles an hour, right? So I gotta make sure I'm still maintaining some kind of speed right there, right? I like to use that example. So now I'm just going to do the same thing this way. Now notice I've turned my paper this way. So it's going to help me do this. Now if you need to go back and erase, kind of shape this a little more. You may have to. So I feel pretty good about that. Notice how it seems to touch the line right here rather than right here. That's because I really want it to kind of start to meet and then be part of it by the time I got here. So I had to get really close to it right here and then finally join and be a part of this side right here. Okay? Now we're done with all this little extra marks right here in the middle. We can erase our little crosshairs here. They serve their purpose. They're no longer needed. Our little dashes are done. Now I just have to go back and fill in those spaces I just erased. Ta-da! Got an arch. All right. Now, there's some problems. We don't need this anymore. Okay? We really don't need this anymore, but how are we going to do this now? What are we going to do about this area? We got to trim that off. And then we got to create another kind of arch back on this side. Right? So easily on this side, all you got to do is remove that. Okay, that was easy. Now we're going to have to erase some of this. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to line up from something here to that vanishing point there. And how I'm going to do that? put your ruler on the right vanishing point, and then the pivot right there, to start to bring that ruler down until it touches that arch. When it touches the arch, that's where you know you need to start from to draw that top. Now I'm not going to go all the way to the vanishing point. Actually, I'll stop at that back side. That looks weird, right? That's not going to work. So I'm going to do something with that back corner now. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to mimic this curve back here. Now I'm sure if you really want to go crazy with this, you could have repeated that whole process of what we did on the front, on the back side, and done all that. That's why, as linear perspective, you can just go crazy with it, okay? To get this like mathematical correctness, knock yourself out if you want to. But all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to erase this backside and try to make something kind of believable that pairs up with and matches that part, okay? Probably going to be a little smaller. I feel pretty good about that. Now again, you need to make sure that those curves, it just curves right off those, where it doesn't feel like as if you're going along this line, and all of a sudden it just kind of jumps off of it at an angle. You make sure you just kind of start to curve off of it. Okay, and it'll feel like as if it's curving naturally, like as if it should. I'll just draw an instance of what would not look good. Obviously something like that wouldn't look very good, right? Maybe even a better attempt. But still yet, just not quite there. You really got to act like as if you're extending off of this line and then start to gradually curve off of it. And then make it run into that one, okay, in order to make that work. Okay? All right. So, what we can do now is we could, I did in my original one, had a little circle there, just know you could do that. You could repeat off of this kind of arch right here and create a circle right there, right? But then what you got to do is create almost like if you want to create like a wall, like a surface, like a window, like a depth, you would have to then create that same kind of curve in it like that. So let's do this. Let's make this an arched doorway, okay? All right. And let's do that by, we're about out of time here. This will be the last thing we do. So I'm going to create like a door entry here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a vertical that extends up here. Now I want to make it look like as if, you know, this is the same thickness over here, but it should be a little wider. Just because this side is a little closer to us. So I'm going to try to maybe just guess that. I'm going to say probably about right here. Extend up a vertical. And then I'm just going to create another arch that kind of echoes off the one that was there. Just using the arch that's there as a reference to kind of help me draw this one. And this is where practicing drawing ellipses and things like that really come in handy. Because ellipses, occur all in the man-made environment. Now, we need to make this look like a door entry, okay? That means we need to kind of give this some kind of little depth to that, okay? And this is where it gets like the little details, okay? I'm going to go from this corner and then line up to this right vanishing point. And I'm just going to stop. I'm going to create just a small distance right here, okay? But even with that little thing, I'm going to have to line up to this right vanishing point. Okay? Even with that little bitty line right there, it goes to that vanishing point. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to echo off of this and just draw that in. Now what it's going to do is it's going to kind of do this funny kind of thing at the top. Kind of like that. Again, that's something where it takes practice. And it really is an echo of this same kind of shape right here, right there, except for, it gets lost. It's, we just don't see it. Now we can erase this line right here going into the entrance. So it does feel like an entrance. Feels like now we can enter inside this space. And believe it or not, there's one more thing we got to do now that we've done that, and we'll be done for the day. Now that we can see inside this space, we can actually see where this wall in the back should meet the floor back here. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up from this corner to this vanishing point. I'm going to draw a line through this area. Okay? So I'm going to go from that vanishing point on the outside, that corner on the outside, and draw a line to the right vanishing point. And that's what we get. So now it feels like as if you can enter inside the space. We can see where the wall meets the floor on the interior. Okay? All right. So we're going to call it a day on that. Just make sure your name's on it, put your folder. And next class we'll pick up